Hi, I'm Micah Halpern. Thank you for joining me today as I do some thinking out loud. Our first segment is called Background Briefing. The first thing I've been thinking about is hacking, and hacking. It's on everyone's mind. Was it the Russians? Was it WikiLeaks? Are they in cahoots? And did the hacking interfere with the US election? Anonymous, the loosely connected hacker community, sent a warning to Donald Trump on Twitter. The tweet came in on January 15th at about 7:45 p.m. At the time, Trump himself was doing what he does so successfully, tweeting. His topic was Russia, not Russian hacking. He was tweeting about several other issues relating to Russia, like mobsters, Crimea, Ukraine, and Syria. Anonymous entered the tweeting conversation at 7:47 p.m. The hacker tweet read, "This isn't the 80s any longer. Information doesn't vanish. It's all out there. You are going to regret the next 4 years." This was not the first time Anonymous threatened Trump. During the campaign, they let him know that they had details of embarrassing material that, when divulged, would hurt him. No such material emerged. But hackers, probably anonymous hackers, but who really knows, did attack some Trump business websites, flooding them with so many emails that the sites crashed. Bringing down the site is a very simple and rudimentary attack. It's one of the easiest to defend against and the easiest to launch. This kind of attack, by the way, is called a DDoS, which stands for Distributed Denial of Service. The DDoS is most often just called denial of service, or DOS. In the end, it's a minor inconvenience for the host. Anonymous is a group of serial hackers. Every year on Holocaust Memorial Day, let's say for instance, they attack Israel. They've also attacked ISIS and other terror groups too. And they have attacked national websites in various countries, including Canada. On New Year's Day, January 1st, 2017, along with another hacker group called Hackback, Anonymous hacked the Bilderberg Group and left a message and a warning. The Bilderberg Group is composed of leaders from government, industry, finance, and media that convenes an annual conference to discuss issues of mutual interest. It was established in 1954. There are about 150 powerful people who gather together each year to discuss the important issues facing the world. Some groups, like Anonymous and Hackback, see it as a conspiracy to control the world. The hacker message told Bilderberg to look out for the common people, for the weak, and for the poor, not just for the elite. They left a warning threat in the form of an ultimatum. This is what it said. "Dear Bilderberg members, from now, each one of you has 1 year, 365 days, to truly work in favor of humans and not your private interests. Each topic you discuss or work you achieve through your uber private meetings should from now benefit world population and not X or Y group of people otherwise. We will find you and we will hack you." These hackers are more a nuisance than anything else. Nothing more. If your system is not protected, they can moderately be dangerous. Take, for example, the hack that struck Clinton Chief of Staff John Podesta. It was hardly sophisticated, and it is unlikely that any real hacking skill can be attributed to the hack, especially given the wording of the information about the hack. It was a hack that most kids could easily have perpetrated. Podesta left himself wide open. His password was password. Any kid could have cracked that. The only easier password would be something like numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, that category or something like that. As an aside, by the way, the word password is the most common password used. If it's your password, change it. In addition, we are told that the computer code that was used to hack into the DNC was similar, if not identical, to codes that were used in other Russian perpetrated hacks. That comment shows the ignorance of the report writers, and I hope not the analysts. Hacking access codes like the one that was used here are all over the black web. Just download and run them. It's not as simple as copy and paste, but it's pretty easy. Good hacking codes are used by thousands of hackers. New and updated ones are posted all the time. The report clearly says that the hacking was traced to Russia, but every hacker worthy of the title hacker, even teenage hackers, ghost their locations. It's a simple program that you click onto that bounces your position to other positions around the world. Some of these programs are good, some are very good, and many are free or very inexpensive. Let's say today I was in London. These ghosting programs also protect users from hackers. All that being said, in our world today, the threat of cyber attack is great. At this stage, we need to differentiate, though, between real threats and between children playing around and nuisance attacks. We need to defend ourselves, and we need to bolster our systems. Yes, Russia is engaged in hacking, and in very sophisticated hacking. So is China, so is Iran, so is Germany, and every other Western country, including the United States and Israel. The best defense against others hacking into your system is hacking into theirs. The better the hack, the harder to detect. And a great counter hack hacks the hacker. As for Mr. Trump and Anonymous, the hackers were just strutting their stuff. Even a group calling itself Anonymous craves a bit of limelight. On another security issue related to modern technology, the head of Germany's domestic terror unit said that ISIS has been utilizing social media headhunters for recruiting purposes and that they have signed up children as young as 13 and 14 years old. Social media recruiters use Facebook, they use Instagram, and other new media. They use an algorithm to identify people who might be prime for ISIS. The next step is to send the potential recruits to ISIS recruiters to snap up the kids and send them off to join ISIS. This is one of the most serious dangers of social media and an algorithm like this. Information in the wrong hands becomes a danger for all others. Moving along, the president of Poland, Andrzej Duda, visited Israel. This was an important trip for both countries. The Polish president asked to include a visit to Mount Herzl, Israel's national cemetery, on his official itinerary. While at Mount Herzl, Duda placed a stone on the grave of Yoni Netanyahu, the brother of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who was killed in the famous July 4th, 1976 operation saving Jews who were hijacked, kidnapped, and brought to Entebbe, Uganda. The Polish president knew of Yoni's story and brought a stone from the Warsaw Ghetto to place on the gravesite. The symbolism is powerful. Bravery and fighting against all odds. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising and the Uganda Rescue are two of the most significant, elevating, and mythic stories for all Israelis, as a nation, as a people, and as individual Jews and Israelis. This was a very, very thoughtful and positive move on the part of President Duda and the people of Poland. From thoughtful to obnoxious and abhorrent, Hamas member of Parliament Marwan Abu Ras gave a sermon in a mosque recently that illustrates just how radical Hamas beliefs are. Abu Ras said that Jews recruited prostitutes into the army in order to lure Arabs into their traps, and further added that Jews sent AIDS-infected girls to fornicate with Muslim youths. He said, "My brothers, have patience. Victory is coming soon, Allah willing." He continued, "Their state is about to disappear. We do not know exactly how this will happen, but we know what our Lord and our Prophet have told us. The time for miracles is almost upon us. My brothers, know that people, stones, and trees all hate the Jews. Everyone on earth hates this filthy nation, a nation extrinsic to mankind. This fact was elucidated by the Quran and the Sunnah. O Allah, destroy the criminal Jews and those who help and support them, as well as those who engage in security coordination with them. O Allah, strike them with a resounding blow, for they are no match for you. Shake their entity and bring them down. O Allah, drive them out of our lands in submission and humiliation. O Allah, enable us to kill them." This is the true voice of Hamas. This is what Hamas is preaching to the masses. Coming up, points of view. Here's what some important voices have been talking about. First up is a column by Amos Yadlin. Amos Yadlin was born in Kibbutz Chatzerim, the son of Ada and Aaron Yadlin. In 1970, he enlisted in the Israeli Air Force. Yadlin obtained a BA in Economics and Business Administration at Ben Gurion University in the Negev. He received a master's degree in public administration from the JFK School of Government at Harvard University. Major General Reserve Amos Yadlin is the director of Tel Aviv University's Institute for National Security Studies. Between 2004 and 2006, he served as Israel's military attaché to the United States in D.C. Upon his return to Israel, Yadlin was named the head of Amman, the IDF's Military Intelligence Directorate. This piece is called U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, American-Israeli Partnership Needed. Of course, remember that this piece was written before Trump was inaugurated, but the point is the same. It was published actually on January 20th, 2017, which is the day of the inauguration. It was published in Yediot Achronot and on ynet.com. Trump's Iranian challenge is an opportunity for Israel to ask whether the new U.S. administration should stick to the nuclear deal or tear it up. Should they maintain the agreement's achievements in the near future in order to fix its difficult strategic flaws in the long run? Israel is now being given a second chance to influence the U.S. policy on this issue. This is how Yadlin begins. When Donald Trump entered the White House, he will have found a number of important missions on the foreign affairs waiting on his desk. The Iranian issue is one of them. The discussion of a recommended strategy vis-a-vis Iran is just around the corner, and the decision must be made between alternatives that are more sophisticated than supporting or opposing the nuclear agreement. This is also an opportunity for Israel to fix the failures of its conduct in the summer of 2015. Yadlin continues to set the stage of his argument. He continues and says, during the election campaign, Trump blatantly opposed the nuclear agreement, threatening to rip it to shreds. But in the Senate hearings, his nominees for the new administration expressed a more moderate tone. The Secretary of Defense designate, General James Mattis, for example, argued that although the agreement was not a good one, the United States had to fulfill its commitments. The designated Secretary of State and CIA Director emphasized the shortcomings of the agreement, but vowed to tightly supervise its implementation and not to take any steps to annul it. Yadlin is showing that Trump, or at least his nominees, seem to be practical on this matter and not ideological. Now Yadlin asks the most important question of all. Here he says, the question therefore is not whether the new administration should stick to the agreement or tear it up, but rather how it should maintain the agreement's achievements in the near future in order to fix its difficult strategic flaws in the long run. Yadlin explains the pros of the agreement and that it might not be a good idea to throw it all out. Here's how he says it. From an overall point of view, it would be wrong to give up the agreement's achievements, particularly in the first years, before the main restrictions on the nuclear program start becoming invalid. At the same time, it would be wrong to allow the radical regime in Iran to reach advanced nuclear capabilities, which are made possible in the later years of the agreement. Yadlin then explains that the change of administration will have an impact on Israel, an impact that is important to understand and calculate before making a rash judgment or strategic diplomatic move. Here's what he says. With the arrival of the new administration, Israel has been given a second chance to influence the U.S. policy towards the Iranian nuclear program, an opportunity for joint action against Iran and advancing a parallel agreement, an Israeli-American one aimed at changing the strategic reality without violating the agreement. Yadlin concludes with a profound recipe for success. Here's how he does it. As part of the attempts to restore relations between Israel and the United States, there is an urgent need for a strategy that will restore the deterrence against Iran and prevent it from taking advantage of the nuclear agreement's weak spots. If the deterrence and diplomacy fail, the American-Israeli partnership will be the way to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. Yadlin is correct. It's all about working together. Only together can Israel and the U.S. stop Iran and their march toward nuclear weapons. And that is the real threat and the real challenge. Yadlin is saying quite simply, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Second up is a column, also from Yediot Achronot and from Ynet, and it's written by their regular columnist Alex Fishman. It was published on January 18th, 2017. Fishman is not just a regular columnist. He has a penetrating pen. He is very insightful. In this column, Fishman asserts that the Palestinians on the Gaza Street are no longer believing that their living conditions will ever improve. The fiery protests are an uprising in the making and have exposed for the first time the potential of toppling the Hamas government from the inside. Fishman begins. When thousands of members of the young movement marched last Thursday on the streets of Jabalia in the Gaza Strip, chanting the battle cry of Tahrir Square, Al-Shahab, Yurid, Iskat al-Nizam. The young people want the fall of the regime. They attracted the attention of quite a few people in the Israeli defense establishment. There was a feeling that we were witnessing a rerun of the Arab Spring, threatening the Hamas regime this time. This demonstration was the highlight of about 10 popular protests held in the Strip in the past month, since the heavy cold wave began. Fishman shows that Palestinians in Gaza have just had enough, and they can't take it anymore. They're calling this the electricity intifada. And it's against Hamas, it's not against Israel. But electricity is just part of it. He shows that the young people are at their wits' end with no possible options. He also notes that for years, Hamas did not permit a single protest. They arrested, shot, and beat protesters. And now we're witnessing more and more protests in Gaza. Here is how Fishman concludes. Palestinians in the streets of Gaza, for their part, have had enough. The slogan used by Hamas to take over Gaza, Islam is the solution, has lost its meaning. 10 years of siege and Operation Protective Edge have dealt a death blow to the chance that the living conditions there will ever improve. The electricity intifada is an uprising in the making. It's just a sign of things to come. Of course, the big question is how much more can the people of Gaza take, and what will happen at their breaking point? Coming up, commentary through cartoons, where pictures tell the story. I want to discuss 3 cartoons today. The first makes fun of Donald Trump's hair. It's drawn by Manny Francisco and was published on January 20, 2017 in the Philippine paper called the Manila Times. The cartoon is entitled Hair Force One. The cartoon pokes fun at Trump's famous hair. The plane, obviously Air Force One, has a huge flop of blondish hair on top of it. It's in Trump style. Trump knows that people make fun of his hair. Actually, on Thursday night before the inauguration on Friday, he said that he hopes that it rains, quote, then people will at least know that this is my real hair. Next up is a cartoon from Jordan drawn by Ahmed Hajjaj, and it's entitled Putin, the Lone Player. It was published on January 18, 2017. The objective of the cartoon is to point out that Putin is playing his own game in the Middle East. He's playing all by himself. No one is even engaging with him. Putin is sitting at a chessboard entitled The Middle East, and he is shown playing both sides of the table. This third cartoon, and final cartoon, is by Branko and was published on Legal Insurrection on December 29, 2016. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is watching a rocket fly over an Israeli flag. The rocket reads UN resolution and has an image of the US flag on its tail. Branko is making fun of the UN resolution that the US did not veto. It was an anti-Israel resolution. He is saying that the resolution is opening up the possibility of rocket attacks and other attacks on Israel with the blessing of the United States and the United Nations. In a moment, my own perspective and a few predictions. Jordan's Ministry of Religious Affairs has fired 15 imams from their roles as leaders of mosques. 7 additional imams are being disciplined. The reason behind these disciplinary actions is the decision by these religious figures to refuse to pray for the recovery of Jordanians and tourists who were wounded in terror attacks by ISIS on December 18th and December 20th. In addition to those who were wounded, 11 Jordanian soldiers, 2 Jordanian civilians, and a Canadian civilian were killed in the attacks. All 5 ISIS terrorist perpetrators were also killed. The incident illustrates just how fragile the situation is in Jordan. Jordanian leadership is fighting ISIS, but it seems that some of the rank and file, even imam employees of the Ministry of Religion, side with the terrorists. Jordan sees the threat of ISIS very clearly, and senior leadership is working hard to buttress the country against terror and stymie the development of ISIS within Jordan itself. But Jordan borders both Iraq and Syria, and therein rests the problem. Tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of refugees from both countries have fled to Jordan. Independent of that reality is the fact that there are many people in Jordan who lean toward religious extremism in the guise of ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Despite it all, Jordanian leadership is stepping up their battle against terror. They must stop the trend of terror threatening to overrun their country and the region. They know what needs to be done. We all hope they can do it. Moving on, passenger jets are the perfect symbol of Iran's move out of the doghouse and finding a place among the community of nations. Both Airbus and Boeing have been competing for the huge prize of well over $130 billion in deals with Iran. Airbus represents one of the largest companies in France, while Boeing symbolizes American corporations. So far, the score is nearly even, with Airbus just nosing out Boeing. Airbus has a contract for 731 planes with Iran, while Boeing 668. This includes the 100 Airbus planes sold to Iran just after the sanctions were lifted last year. These planes will open up the doors for Iran, tourism, for trade, for global interaction, and much more will happen as these planes arrive in Iran and take their place in the new Iranian fleet. Now over to Russia. Ever since Russia entered the Syrian affairs in 2015, Israel and Russia, more specifically Benjamin Netanyahu and Vladimir Putin, are in regular contact about Syria and other issues in the Middle East. The essence of the dialogue is the shoring up of mutual interests. In this case, that means that both sides stay away from each other and not fire on one another in air and on the ground. Russian allies, Syria, Bashar Assad that is, and supporters, Hezbollah and Iran, are very upset by this. They are not happy at all that Russia, and they don't understand why Russia even supports Israel's actions and bombings in Syria. Israel does not want Assad or Hezbollah or Iran or ISIS or Al-Qaeda in the Golan Heights, and Russia respects Israel's need to protect itself. Open lines of communication between Putin and Netanyahu are Russia's way of de-escalating potential conflict between Israel and Russia in both the air and the ground in Syria, and that is very wise. Over the past month, Russia has moved from being an actor in Syria, securing Assad's position and control, to being a mediator in Syria, trying to establish a ceasefire. It's a hard shift, but it can be done. However, the Assad regime and the Iranians are not happy with this new role Russia has assumed. They want Russia to stay firmly on the side of Assad. The rebels, by the way, fighting Assad have no delusions. They know that Russia is on the side of Assad and Iran and Hezbollah. They also know that Russia has power to influence Iran and Assad, which means that a ceasefire could be in everyone's best interest. Syria and Iran do not understand Russia, but the rebels do understand Russia. Russia is not turning its back on Syria and Iran. Rather, Russians are advocating and advancing their own vision. In order to confront Russia, Iran and Syria need to first understand why Russia is interested in changing their established role and becoming, at the same time, a mediator and a bomber of ISIS and Al-Qaeda. When they find the answer to that, they can try to confront Russia and influence their actions, but not before they found the answer. We've been thinking out loud about a lot today. Now that you know what I've been thinking, let me know what you're thinking. Email me at micah@jbstv.org. Tweet me at Micah Halpern. Tell me what you think. Before we end, let me leave you with one piquant piece of information. Have you ever wondered why we call Israel Israel, or the State of Israel? When Israel was created, there was a big question, a discussion, a serious debate about whether to call Israel the State of Judah, or Judea, or simply the State of Jews. Others wanted to call it Zion and the State of Zion, because the movement was called Zionism. David Ben-Gurion said no. Judea was a term he did not like. It was the basis of the word Jew, and the word Jew was a term of the diaspora, where Jews were oppressed and where Jews were powerless. They needed a name that resonated with the power and romance of the biblical past and had an image of strength. They wanted to make certain that the name of the new state did not conjure any images of victimhood of the Jews in anyone's mind around the world, especially for anti-Semites. In the end, the name Israel and the State of Israel was chosen and would be the name. David Ben-Gurion thought that Israel was a name from the Bible. It was a changed name of Jacob after he wrestled with the angel. Israel was the classic name that symbolized transformation, a name that symbolized the change from victimhood to power and independence. The name of Israel placed an emphasis on the changed society, on the people and the place that is Bible-like, not diaspora-like. Thank you for thinking out loud with me, Micah Halpern. Let's think out loud again next week on JBS.
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS, the Jewish Broadcasting Service, with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the JBS homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to Jim, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.